Today was the second part of the Daubert evidentiary hearing regarding Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell testified in the first trial regarding the injuries to victim John O'Keefe's arm, testifying that they were most likely from dog bites. Her testimony was fairly limited. Some of that was due to discovery and the fact that she was discovered as a witness in the middle of trial, and it didn't give the Commonwealth a lot of time to find another expert and rebut her testimony, and her testimony at that trial was limited. The special prosecutor has been brought into this case for the retrial, has brought a motion to exclude her as a witness, and made some good arguments in his final arguments to the court that there is no scientific process here, saying that this is not something that can be repeated, that this is not something that's widely accepted within the community to recognize dog bites through pattern recognition. Of course, when the defense made their arguments at the end of the hearing today, what they said is, well, Your Honor, in other courts, and let me show you the rulings on the other courts, other medical professionals have been allowed in to give this testimony because they have treated wounds from dogs and are able to look at a wound and say, this is a wound that if it came into my ER, in my experience, I look at that wound and go, that is a dog bite. We need to treat it like a dog bite. That wound did not come from a vehicle collision. And the defense is asking that Dr. Russell be allowed to testify to not only that the wounds on John O'Keefe's arm were from dog bite and dog scratch marks, but from an animal attack, and that those injuries do not come from a vehicle collision and are not consistent with a vehicle collision. That is what they want to use this expert for. The arguments at the end, I thought, were quite good, though the prosecution did spend more time going after the qualifications of the expert than I thought they would, which was surprising, because the question here for me isn't whether or not she's qualified, it's whether or not the process of recognizing dog bites and dog attack marks are something that is recognized within the medical community as something you can look at and recognize. And it seems from the defense and their case law that it is, because medical professionals have to be able to look at injuries to a human and go, that's a dog bite. We'll treat it like a dog bite. So the court is going to decide not only if Dr. Russell is allowed in as an expert in the next case, but also what opinions Dr. Russell will be allowed to give if she testifies in the retrial. At the end of the hearing today, we also heard scheduling for the oral argument to see if another Daubert evidentiary hearing will be had regarding the defense digital expert. And then there are Rule 14 discovery motions with regard to the ARCA experts, who we on this channel called Crash Daddies, who did the accident reconstruction and the biomechanical engineering information. They came from the FBI investigation into this case.
You thought that Chloe was in another state. Did you ever discuss going to see Chloe and doing these studies on Chloe so you could see if they were dissimilar to these abrasions?
I was asked to evaluate the wounds.
Right.
Do you know that Chloe exists, that we provided notice
job.
to you, that we went up and saw Chloe and took molds? Did you know that?
What?
Did you know that? I'm going to allow it. Did you know that, doctor?
I do know that now.
Did you know that before you testified the last date in this case?
What? This is going to be such a different trial when this goes to retrial. So now they're saying, the prosecution is saying that they went to visit Chloe and took molds. Well, who was there when that was done to verify that it was Chloe? And apparently this was done since this prosecutor has come into the case.
Did you know that before you testified the last date in this case, that we actually went up and found Chloe and took molds and measured the paws and the teeth? Did you know that we did that?
I don't know. I don't recall.
Before you came in and testified at the last hearing,
Wait, you don't
recall
know
whether
that?
you knew that Chloe was
Ma'am.
available?
I believe I knew that there was a consultant, that you hired a consultant, and I didn't know what that consultant was going to be doing.
Okay.
Today, we learned that the prosecution actually went and found Chloe the dog and did measurements of Chloe's claws and paws and they said molds and casts of Chloe's jaw and bite. And the defense expert had not seen those, but was aware that that had been done. So the prosecution continues to do investigation into this case, including finding the dog and then doing measurements and molds of the dog. Whether this information will come in at the second trial, we don't know yet. If there's going to be a evidentiary hearing on this, we don't know yet. But that was new information to me in this hearing today. We also learned today that there was another expert from the federal investigation. It seems that that expert is a pathologist that looked at the wounds to the victim, John O'Keefe's arm, and said that they did not believe that those were animal attack or dog bite or scratch marks, but also that the injuries to John O'Keefe are not consistent with being hit by a car hard enough to cause the injury to the back of the head that caused death. So I don't think we're going to see that expert being called by the prosecution, because even though they say, I don't think the injuries to the arm are from an animal, they also say, I don't think the injuries to John O'Keefe indicate that he was hit by a car, which is consistent with the pathologist in this case that did testify. A lot of new information we learned today for sure. And that is why these hearings, though they can have very slow and dry moments, also have so much information. It's clear that this second trial of Karen Read under the direction of Hank Brennan is going to be a very different trial than the first trial of Karen Read was. And we saw that in the way he proceeded in court, and while made some good legal arguments, also brought in a whole lot of snark. It's going to be very interesting to see how this goes forward, but we're going to have a few more court dates to go to see the evidentiary hearings in this case before it goes to trial in April. We've been assured it will be a shorter trial when it goes to trial in April. I don't believe that for a minute, but we'll see what happens. We do not have a ruling yet from the Supreme Judicial Court regarding the jurors in this case, so that is still pending. We do not have a ruling on this motion today and probably won't have a ruling before the next hearing. And we will be back in court on the Karen Read case, it looks like at the end of January. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the LawNerd app at lawnerd.app.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.